everyone. Welcome to Founder Loveline, the show where we are humanizing the entrepreneurial journey, navigating the pitfalls of startup life, and bringing guests on from all over the world who have been there, done that. Super happy to be here today with Chris Vasquez. We are in beautiful Venetian Island, Miami. Thank you so much Chris, for hosting in your beautiful home and for having this talk with us.
I'm so excited. I love talking about this stuff, so I'm very excited. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So clearly you've been working hard at Quantum on the tech and recruiting side. So specifically for VC-backed companies, SaaS, AI, Web3, right? Tell us about your journey from co-founder, CEO, creating Quantum and kind of the empire that you've created there, and what backed into that vision in building Quantum.
So it started at University of San Diego, where I went to college, had no clue what I wanted to do. And I was partying probably 3-4 nights a week, just wanted to get a job, did not know at all what I wanted to do. There was a career fair, there's a very attractive woman named Molly McShane. I was going up to start to flirt with her. She ended up being a corporate recruiter for a recruiting company. I just wanted to talk to her, so I took the interviews. 4 interviews later, I got the job and I had nothing else. So I said, all right, screw it, let's go. And so I just fell into the recruiting world for one of the big, massive companies and quickly got pretty good at it. But then I was bored. I was working with like Fortune 500 companies, a lot of bureaucratic, big organizations, developed a good skill set, good work ethic, but just had no passion for the types of companies I was working for. So left Insight Global. Then I went to a smaller boutique company, another small boutique company. It was pretty hard at first. The first 2 years, I would say I pretty much failed. I was good at recruiting, and then I tried to get into sales. I fell on my face. I had 2 bosses, my first company and second company. They're like, you're just not cut out for this. Like, you're just never gonna be good at sales. You just don't have what it takes. And when the second one said that, it pissed me off so bad. I just put every ounce of effort I had in my body into succeeding. I stopped listening to music for a year. I only listened to like personal development tapes. I read every book on sales. I cut out all like these negative influences and I just went all in and became the top guy at that company. I was 25 years old and had just hit my first 6-figure year, and I was like, I thought I'd be the man. I thought I'd feel great. I was pretty bored and unfulfilled, and so I read a quote on Instagram and it said, if your life was a book, would you want to read it? And I said, I don't want to read my book. So I quit my job, took a one-way trip to the Philippines, ended up traveling for a year, did 25 countries, and started to write my book. And that's important because that's when I started to gain the confidence to follow my own inner voice and not the corporate ladder and the advice that my parents and society was telling me I had to do. So once I came back from that trip, I had all these amazing stories. I developed myself. I rode a motorcycle across Vietnam. I taught English in Ghana and Kenya, became a yoga teacher in India. I had all these cool stories and I really felt like I knew who I was as a person, but I came back and I was broke. And so I had to go get another job, went to my third recruiting company, but now I had a lot of confidence and I had a lot of self-assurance and I felt like I was an interesting person. And I took that motivation and I became the top guy at the next company. And it was the same thing though. I was like, I'm just not fulfilled. I'm just kind of doing a job and I'm making good money now. I think I was making a few $100 grand at the time, 300 grand. And I was like, there's gotta be more. There's just gotta be more to this. I looked around and I'm like, okay, why am I not inspired? Like, number one, I just didn't see a lot of inspiring people surrounding me at my companies. Usually there's a few really amazing people and everyone else was kind of coasting. And I was like, I wanna be around inspiring energy, people that have missions, people that wanna be the best in the world at what they do. And 2, I was like, I gotta work with a client, a customer that I'm obsessed with serving. And so for me, that wasn't big companies. It was too boring. The impact that I was having, I couldn't see how it was materially impacting the company. And it was dealing with a lot of middle line management that they themselves weren't very inspired. And so I said, if I'm gonna go do this, what would be the most inspiring vision I could possibly think of? So I wanna work with startup founders that are building the future. I want to work with Zuck. I want to work with Travis Kalanick. I want to build the next Uber or Facebook before anyone knows who they are. I want to work with the best people in the world, just a team of killers that are absolute 1%ers. There's no people just chilling and coasting. I want to invest in companies, have skin in the game, and actually share on the upside. And also, I don't want to just work on one side of a company. I don't want to just place an executive or just place an engineer. I want to build an entire company, right? And so I started getting this vision, and that really excited me. I didn't have the network in Silicon Valley. At the time, I'd never even placed an executive. I had no idea what executive recruiting even entailed. I didn't have the network. I just had the vision, and I had some success playing in the San Diego market, for some smaller name companies. I really did not have the background, credibility, credentials, nothing. But I launched the company 4 years and 3 months ago. But it was the vision that got me excited. I was like, I know I can figure this shit out. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'll figure it out. And that's when I launched Quantum 4 years ago with that exact vision that I shared with you. I wanted to build a company where we could be the first company in the world that commercialized an end-to-end service where we could build unicorns from the ground up. And that's essentially how it unfolded.
Incredible. Absolutely love this story. And it's like to hear kind of the time that you had to spend in the trenches, working for the people and around the people that was not going to propel you in a way that you were seeking. I think it just says a lot. I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions around being a founder and an entrepreneur and what that entails, and thinking that it's a glamorous place to be. If you could just extract some of like the main experiences from making that transition, what would it be? And like inclusive of, the mindset and psychological aspect as well.
So I'll say a few things about that. Number one is you have to be an entrepreneur before you launch your company. And what I mean by that is you have to work really hard on yourself and be prepared. Your mindset, your emotional regulation, your habits, you have to be an extremely high-performing individual before you can go build a company. People think they just want to be an entrepreneur and go start it and they'll figure that out. You have to get yourself ready for that process because it's going to be brutal. So 2 years before I launched my company, I was going all in 30, 40 hours per week on personal development. Seminars, coaching, therapy, events, masterminds. Every bit of money I was making, I was pouring back into myself to learn new skill sets, new habits. I paid to get into really high-end rooms with a lot of successful entrepreneurs. Before I really had the income, I was putting all my money back in me. So first, you got to invest in yourself. From there, I say it's really valuable to work for other people to gain the skill sets and the experiences to understand what you'd even want to build and how you could gain a competitive advantage. So I put in 7 years grinding in one area, one skill set, before I realized, okay, I've seen this at 3 companies. I can clearly see, 1, I have evidence that I'm better than 99% of people now. But 2, I can see the gaps in the market and how I'd want to plug those to build something much greater where I could actually build a successful company. And then 3, I would say, is like, okay, now I'm confident because of who I've built myself as a character, that I have the determination, the skill sets, the habit, the disciplines to be successful. And so I think you need a lot of balls to go start a company. You need a lot of confidence, and people are like, well, I don't have evidence yet. And so I think you have to just trust in yourself as a person. But before you can trust yourself to build a company, you got to trust your habits. You got to trust who you are. And so I'm really big on just master yourself. Become somebody so proficient and so masterful over yourself that you can master any goal. You can do any business, right? And for me, that was the real transition. So I worked really hard on myself, launched the company. I'll admit, I was terrified. I was in the midst of COVID when I launched this company, which all recruiting, all hiring froze globally. And I was burning cash, and I was not in a good spot. And it was life or death. But those situations actually bring out the best in you. When you're against the ropes, you either go back and get a job, or you double down, you figure it out, and you become your hero. So I was like, I'm gonna figure this shit out. And it happened that COVID, the remote work that came from that, ended up being the launching pad for the business. So at first it was the worst thing ever. It became the best thing ever because it forced me to go build a brand new network in Silicon Valley, because that's where all the money was flowing. It forced me to learn marketing because I realized I couldn't do 1,000 hours of prospecting a week. So I built a marketing system with AI and lead gen so I could actually have clients on demand. So it forced me to get very resourceful. And those things helped me make the first few $1 million to build our brand and to eventually be able to hire the team. But that was the decision. Everyone is going to come across that point in the early days where it seems like there's no hope. and it seems like every card is stacked against you. And so, number one, you have to be mentally and physically prepared to handle that. So you're more powerful than any obstacles you're gonna face. And number two, you gotta just get resourceful and make sure whatever's coming at you, you're seeing that as an opportunity and saying, how do I capitalize on this? So we've seen a lot of obstacles, and we talked about this offline. You have to constantly be willing to reinvent yourself, right? I was a recruiter, then I had to be a sales guy, then I had to be a founder, and then to scale the company, I had to become a CEO, and each different level of growth requires a new evolution, and so you have to be mentally prepared to go through that journey.
I love this so much. Thank you for sharing. I truly believe vulnerability as strength, and being able to see kind of the parts that you can improve is just massive. We hear about burnout all the time, right? And it's often like a reactive type of approach of like, oh, I'm facing burnout, or I am in burnout now. Let me go do this work, this inner work, kind of the rediscovery aspect. So really want to highlight the importance of the proactive measures that you can take to get your mindset ready. I don't know what percentage you would put on like company building and how much of it is like business savviness and mindset, right? But as a CEO, I mean, I think it's a massive part of it, mindset-wise.
I think success is 80% psychology, at least, 20% what you do, because if you master your mind and your energy, everything follows from that. Everything is downstream from that. So if you see every problem as a puzzle or an opportunity, you're going to be very well equipped to powerfully interact in the present moment and capitalize on things. If you're not in the right mind state, you're going to see problems everywhere. You're going to be ineffective. So for me, it's critical to get that mindset and psychology piece right. Like for me, when I started the company, especially when it was during COVID, I was like, there's a lot of obstacles in front of me. I'm running out of money. No one's hiring. I'm a first-time entrepreneur. I've got to do all these things. So I'm like, I'm going to create this savage who is stronger than any obstacle I'm going to face. So I woke up every day, 5 a.m., and I did cold plunges every day for a year.
Amazing.
And I was working out 6 days a week. I had my meditation. I was doing a meditation for an hour every single day. I just had these practices to make myself completely in control of my reality. And people always everyone gives people shit. They're like, oh, well, I did my cold plunge. Am I a millionaire yet? It's like, no, cold plunging is not going to make you a millionaire. But the skills and the disciplines from cold plunging, they will. You actually have to train your nervous system to be comfortable in chaos. And cold plunging is one way to do that, right? You're exposing yourself to a high stress environment. You're regulating your breathing. And there's a lot of health benefits, but other than that, you're just training your body to stay calm in chaos. And that is the key to entrepreneurship. So that's why I go to the gym. It's a great stress relief. I can discipline myself, and I can see physical progress that is paramount, that you see progress in your life, because you might not see it for 6 to 12 months in your business. So it's good to be able to see it evidence in other areas of your life, but you're building discipline, you're building focus, you're regulating your nervous system so you can handle the stress of entrepreneurship. Because if you're not working out, if you're out of shape, if you have no control over what food you're putting in your body, and you're trying to build an empire, good luck, because you have so much out of your control that you have to control the controllables. You have to work out, you have to eat right, you have to voluntarily suffer and choose things that build your character and build your resilience voluntarily before life throws something at you. And so the better you can build yourself, the more equipped you'll be to handle the things that business throws at you.
Wholeheartedly believe in that. And I think it's like, we can't control a lot of the outcomes that we're faced with, but we can control how we react. And for, with certainty, like shit is going to happen. Things are going to be coming into your inbox that like, if your nervous system is not regulated, it could take you out. Yep. And so the mental resilience, I think, is fascinating. Like we hear a lot about pattern matching with VCs and how they're making investments in certain CEOs. And I'm sure you've seen your kind of array of founders and CEOs as well. But it's like, these are the differentiators. Like, like the person who's done the inner work and has the domain expertise in what they do is just such a massive area. And it's like a lot of early stage founders in their, let's say early 20s, might not have that level of awareness yet, but having an appreciation for it and taking those steps to be able to elevate your mindset and be able to positively reframe when shit hits the fan is like a matter of make it or break it.
It is. It 100% is. It's interesting because people are always asking, like, what are the traits that are the biggest predetermination of like whether or not you're going to succeed, right? And if you look at all hyper successful people, of all the studies they've done, there's 3 traits that are the most typical and mega successful people, not ordinarily successful people. So the most successful people in the world have 3 traits, right? 1 is a superiority complex. They believe they're better than the world at something. 2 is an inferiority complex, it's deep insecurity. They're feeling like nothing they do is ever gonna be enough. And 3 is impulse control, ability to discipline yourself until you reach the outcome you want. And it's funny because the most successful people, if you look at it, they want something so bad, they're starving for it so badly that they will develop themselves or do whatever they need to do and become who they need to become in order to get that outcome, because it's such a deep starvation. Other people that don't have that, they'll make excuses, they'll say, oh, I don't want to try that, I don't want to do that. And they get stuck, they plateau. But it's interesting because I think what stops people initially from even launching a business or finding any sense of success early on is confidence. And there's this huge illusion with founders as well, because I think people think the most successful people in the world are the most confident. I think they're the most insecure, the most broken people. And because of their childhood or wherever they started, and their deep sense of loneliness or not belonging or some sort of void within them is so profound that they focus maniacally on building a character that can thrive and survive in the world. And so the most successful people I know were deeply broken or had some really deep trauma, and they just learned how to channel that for good and learn how to control themselves. And that's why you see people build these larger than life characters, is because they were so insecure, they were so unconfident, they had to build something to feel good enough in the world, right? And so the reality is the people you admire are probably even more insecure than you, but they just did something about it. They took their voids, they turned them into values, they took their pain, they turned it into purpose. And then they made a decision, I am going to evolve and learn and do whatever is required, not what I feel like, but what's required to become the person that could achieve this goal. And those, that does not go hand in hand with, like you talked about, burnout. These people are more prone to burning out because it's all or nothing, do or die on getting this outcome. And so mental health and not burning out almost seems to be contradictory to like the mindset of hyper successful people. And I can definitely resonate with that. I think burnout is one of the hardest things I've struggled with. But I think over time, you just learn to change your fuel. At first, it might be this fuck you fuel, like it's all right, I'm gonna go prove to the world because you guys didn't give me validation. I'm gonna go prove how great I am. Eventually, that kind of burns you out because it's not fulfilling, and you realize, all right, well, yeah, you get to a certain point where you're like, okay, I feel confident and secure enough in my abilities and who I am now, and then you go from desperation to inspiration. Now you're going to start building a love-based company, and your vision's coming more from inspiration and like what are you excited to create? How can you serve? But you kind of have to go through that hero's journey sometime of just harnessing that deep FU energy to then get yourself to a place where you feel secure enough, and then you can actually start expanding.
Yes, I love that so much. Love-based energy, heart-led leadership. Like these are things that I think making a hard pivot into kind of how you embody that as a leader and how you instill that into your culture is like, there's still so much toxicity in workplaces, but changing that narrative where like positive well-being and business success can coexist in the same environment. So I'm curious, so your team is up to what, 25 now?
Yeah.
So from an attracting talent for you personally, like you do that with a lot of startups, but attracting talent and as you kind of play into those practices and kind of instilling it within your culture, how has that helped you to attract the right people that are super aligned and happy in what they do? And I would imagine a lot of those best practices are kind of what you're consulting and guiding early stage founders with and how they can attract top talent.
I think before you think about attracting top talent, you have to clearly define your company and who you want to be. And it's going to evolve over time. For instance, my company, if you want work-life balance and mental health, it's not the number one choice, right? You have to be clear about what you stand for. Like we stand for greatness. We want to be the number one company in the world. We're pioneering a new model. We want to disrupt the world with our model and have a bar of excellence that the world's never seen in our space. And so people, this is my thing. There's companies that have great work-life balance, and there's companies that have almost none of it, right? Where it's complete 7 days a week, you're bleeding for that company and mission. I think both are healthy. You just got to know where you want to be and be honest about who you are so you can attract the right people, right? Because For obsessives, a 9-to-5 mindset culture, that's toxic because they want to be surrounded by missionaries. They want to be surrounded by people with big dreams. They want to be pushed. They want to be in a high-performing environment. So putting them with 9-to-5ers is going to mentally cripple them. You put a 9-to-5 mindset person in a X or a Tesla or a SpaceX, and they might have a lot of problems and call that toxic as well and say, hey, you're not taking care of my mental health. It's a mismatch. You got to find the right environment, the right culture that suits you, your personal values, your mission, your motivations. And so for us, we take an approach where we're intense. We want killers. We call them heart-centered savages. We want good human beings that will do the right thing, that operate with integrity, but they're intense. They want to be the best. Number two is just not an option. So our number one core value in the company is Mamba mentality from Kobe Bryant. You have to want to be the best in the world at your craft and constantly be working on yourself to become a better you. If 3 months from now we're talking to the same people, it's not a good fit for our company. We're all about growth, evolution, and really maximizing potential. On the other hand, you can't go nonstop 24 hours a day. I think part of high performance is you got to realize that rest and recovery is just as important as the work itself. So I'm a big fan of sprinting. I'll do 6 to 8 week sprints where I'm working 7 days a week and then 2 weeks where it's a little bit more chill. But we give people the autonomy to control their lives and their schedules so they can kind of regulate themselves. But I always tell everyone, treat yourself like a NASCAR race, right? Like you're a NASCAR racer. You got to pull your car off to the side of the track, change the oil, change the tires before you need to, so you can keep going on the race because it is a marathon. And so we want people that are intrinsically wired to just go, 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 but then have to be told and have to have systems in place to go take vacations, to go spend time with their spouse, their kids. So I think one is we want people that have that intrinsic motivation, but two, inside of our company, we have retreats, we pay for everyone's gym memberships, we do personal development stipends, we have culture building meetings where all we do is focus on the team and check in and build camaraderie and connection. And so we have systems and time blocks on the calendar that reinforce people spending time off, getting connected with each other, so it's not all just work, because I think you have to prioritize the human in order to get the most of them at work. And so you have to have, I hate the word balance because balance for me is an illusion. I don't think you can find balance. It's not like, it's very hard to find true balance, but I think for us, we've just been very clear now. And we learned this over time. At first, this was a lifestyle business. I just wanted to make a couple $1,000,000, travel the world, not have a boss. And then as things evolved, you start hitting different milestones, you start seeing around the corner, you're like, okay, the next vision seems more exciting. We started to develop who we really are, and that element of greatness became the most important thing of like, if we're gonna do this, we got one life, let's do it at a greater level than it's ever been done. And so that tends to attract a certain type of person. And we're okay with people opting out of that environment because you can't have both. You can't be the best in the world and have balance in a company.
It's amazing. I'm sure it was a heavy lift to get to that point. It's like you have to embody it yourself and then wanting it for your team.
Yeah.
There's such a level of alignment there.
Yeah.
It's been awesome kind of seeing your journey on the self-improvement aspect and making a couple of book recommendations along the way. So Happy Little Pocket of Money is one of my favorites. And I talk about it a lot with early stage founders and like the level of wealth consciousness that you really need to set up your mind to be able to receive. And it's like, you're building this path to $1 billion. Like that's a lot of zeros. Like why am I worthy of such, right? And there's a lot of work I think to be done on not dreaming big enough. I'll just say it. Like I talk to a lot of founders, like dream bigger, right? And it's just been really cool to kind of see your journey, but then have that kind of embedded into the ethos of your team members and wanting them to live their best and to be number one in the craft that they do. So amazing job. Last thing I wanted to talk about was when I was kind of in the midst of reinventing myself and kind of went on my personal, spiritual journey as well, I was using this term like spiritual entrepreneurship. And you've used one, spiritual capitalism. So just wanted to talk a little bit about that. I think it can become very noisy and distracting in the external world of seeing the big exits and the big funding rounds and then kind of doing this level of judgment as a founder with wanting certain things. But how do you approach spiritual capitalism?
there's an illusion that if you want to get rich and have nice things, that you're not spiritual, right? Like you need to go renounce you need to renounce all of your items and go up into the Tibetan mountains, right? If you want to be spiritual and enlightened. I think enlightenment really is you can own everything, but nothing owns you. And you can pursue all your worldly desires here on this physical plane, but the quality of your emotions and the energy you put out into the world and the intentions from which you operate, they matter, if not more than the things you're actually doing. And so for me, being a spiritual entrepreneur or a spiritual capitalist is pursuing your dreams, it's pursuing your visions wholeheartedly with intensity, but doing it from a place of love and service. Doing it from a place of good intent where you want to solve problems for people, to alleviate suffering, or to bring value to the world. You're operating from joy and you're operating from joy and love and passion versus scarcity, lack, and fear. Because you can build $1 billion company from either side, but I don't want to build $1 billion company from stress, from fear, from lack. I'll get the result, but I'll feel empty inside. So for me, spiritual entrepreneurship is about pursuing the things you want, accomplishing those things, but doing them from the right place in your heart so that when you actually attain those goals, they actually feel good. Because I don't want to just have all these things in the world. I don't want to have the mansion, the jet, all these accolades and all this status. That is not the thing that gives people fulfillment. Those are the things that the ego craves because we want to feel accepted. And it's okay if you genuinely want that jet or that mansion, go pursue it. That's part of your path. If you have an inspiration to do something, it's part of your evolution. However, don't forget that happiness, joy, and fulfillment is an inside game, and it's how you do something matters just as much as doing the thing itself. And so if you're going to go build your company, if you're going to go build an empire, do it from a place of love, do it from a place of service, and make sure you're coming from the right place in your heart so that when you actually achieve those things, they feel good. And it's not, you didn't just do it all to fill some void created by one of your insecurities. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. It's massive. It's like you got to keep tuning back in. Like you have one-on-ones with everyone in your team. Like, what about yourself and your inner guru, right? And trusting your intuition, kind of that guiding principle of like, okay, I'm making this big, bold decision, but like where in my body is it coming from? So no, I absolutely love that. And like this is the narrative, right, that I think that more entrepreneurs from a place of empowerment is to redefine how the journey looks for them and how it feels. It's you're allowed to feel good when you're building a company. It doesn't have to be
100%.
Losing your soul in the process.
Not at all. It should be an expression of your soul. Building a business is an expression of your soul. Business is spiritual. You see a lot of people living business as ego, and it shows. They're grinding, they're burnt out, they're just trying to collect cash, they're driving their employees into the ground. That's an ego-driven business, and it's going to get mediocre results at best, or you'll kill it for a while and eventually it'll fizzle out. But business is an arena for your spiritual development. That's the truth. Business is fundamentally spiritual. So what are the core elements of spirituality? It's faith. If you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be able to have faith in a vision that no one can see yet. And it might take you years before you have physical evidence to back it up. You need trust. You need to trust and delegate and give up control, surrender control to people that can then help you build it. You need to have the right intentions because people can feel if they're being sold to or if they're being served. Are you serving or are you selling? Right? There's all these components to spirituality, and the energy you're coming from, people can feel it. People can feel if you're on fire for a mission or if you're really just in it to make a quick buck. And that is what's going to create a movement of raving fans that are at your back trying to help you build this thing, or transactional relationships that fizzle out. And so if you focus on business as a spiritual endeavor, the results that you get in life are evidence of your spiritual growth. But don't use those results to validate who you are. Just know, okay, I'm expanding, we're growing because I'm spiritually evolving. You talk about wealth consciousness. The market cap of your company is the wealth consciousness of your company, of each individual added together. So you need to work on each individual in your company and their individual wealth consciousness. What do those people believe about money? What do those people believe about their own capability and what they're worth? Because you're never going to get more than you think you're worth. And so why not work on each individual in the company and say, how do we expand your level of worthiness? How do we expand your understanding of money, increase your skill set so you can provide more value to our customers, expand your individual performance, which then helps our revenue. It's all about how much you can expand the individual to then build a better collective. But the ceiling to the company's greatness is the wealth consciousness of the individuals that build it.
That's fascinating. It's like this holistic view, right? And the more that we can integrate both sides of that world, I think the better we are. So
Yeah, it's so true.
yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. This is incredible. Founders, let's dream bigger. You can have whatever you want. Put your mind and your business to it. So thank you so much for hosting in your beautiful location here. And thanks for listening in to Founder Loveline. We'll see you at the next one.